An organization's culture impacts behavioral values. So here, see, every organization has a culture, right? Every organization has a culture. In smaller organizations, that will be the culture of the, say, smaller organization means actually uh, like some individual owned businesses are normally smaller organizations. So how the owners behave can be seen by others, and then the values of the owners, the people who are really owning that business, that is the organization's belief, can be there seen very clearly, and then the employees also can follow that. So that organizational culture, like what the owners want, can be really be there in the organization. It's really possible in smaller organizations, but in bigger organizations it's not the case, right? They don't see the owners normally. So in such a case, actually, uh, see what if the owners might be having a thick and strong ethical sense, and they want the organization to behave that way, but the upper management's perception of the culture is not a reality at all. Like what they really think their organization would do, that may not have anything to do with the reality in larger organizations. So, what is the remedy? What they are saying is actually like they should really uh, try to find out, right, what is the step one in establishing an ethical culture must be an assessment of the existing culture. You should really understand, like you have various tools to do that. You can really go about interviewing people, survey tools, all those things are there. And what is the culture really happening there, actually the organization is having, you should really try to understand by really getting into them, and then you should try to tweak that in the way you would like them to behave. That, so every organization has got a culture, and before you really make an assumption that that is the culture you are really trying to uh, have it from the top, you should first understand what is really happening on the ground, because what you assume, what you perceive may not be reality. You should really try to understand what is happening on the ground, and then try to tweak or change or amend, and then tell them your expectations of the ethical behavior to them. Then there would be a better reception. You should not make any assumption that there is a culture. Instead, you should try understanding what's happening, because every society, every organization has got a culture. So if you want to make a change, when you define the expectation, you should know what they are currently doing. That, then when you make some, when you define what is really required of them, right, after understanding what they are today, what changes you would require, right, you would be defining the expectations very clearly in the form of a formal code of conduct, and you should give training, probably as a part of the induction program of new employees. You should really uh, you should really have a training on the code of ethics, the moral and ethical expectations of every employee. That can be there as a part of the induction program of new employees. But that's not good enough. You should have ongoing training that is needed, right? So every existing member of staff should receive ongoing training. That ongoing training is not just for the employees, it should start from the board level, cascading down throughout the organization. Then only it will be effective. Ethics training for employees should focus on covering ethical concepts, the organization's code, and compliance. To achieve this, training should include ethical concepts and thinking what is behind the issues of ethical action, the organization's code of ethics, and how that code of ethics is uh, really like addressing the legal issues the organization, I mean, sorry, ethical issues the organization is facing, right? and along with the code of ethics, any supporting rules if you have, that also should be there in the training program. So it is not only at the orientation of the employee, there is a need of ongoing training that's really needed, and that should cover from the board members to uh, the last employee. Then only it will be really effective. To the extent you can cascade down the organization, the better it would be. When it comes to that ongoing ethical education, you should really understand that even after you clear, like after learning all these ethics, everything, after you clear your CMA examination also, IMA expect you to have continuing professional education. I believe it is 30 hours, of which minimum 2 hours should be ethics. That's a requirement of continuing professional education. So ongoing training on ethics is really needed. Okay, and then uh, two methods for monitoring ethical compliance. They are talking about two methods for monitoring ethical compliance. One is human performance feedback loop. The other is survey tools. I have already mentioned about survey tools, but I will just go in detail. First, human performance feedback loop. See, I'll tell you, you will be having so much talk about the code of ethics and the ethical behavior, having the importance of having an ethical sense. You should respect people with, everybody. You should respect everybody else. All those things you will be talking about actually. But then at the end, when there is a performance appraisal, all these things are overlooked. So there is a tendency to go with the results they brought. So an employee is spending time with a customer to really address his grievance and all, are not really included in the human performance feedback. That is really needed. When you set the objectives, you should really have uh, the points like how you behave. All these behavioral aspects should be there in the performance target, and then when you appraise the employee also, how he is really uh, faring as far as the code of ethics is concerned, that should be there in the performance appraisal. Otherwise, it may not be effective. So even when you set the KPIs for management also, you should really have KPIs like this number of new hires and percentages who completed orientation within preferred time frame, percentage of employees who completed annual refresher training on ethical conduct, number of employees scoring achieved or exceeded on annual reviews in ethics criteria, number of employees given an award for noted ethical conduct. So these type of KPIs can be there in the concerned manager's balance scorecard. So unless you link this code of ethics and ethical sense with the performance appraisal, then it will be really difficult to implement. So this is one method for monitoring and effective implementation and effective monitoring the performance. So perform as the annual appraisal go by, you can really see how the it can be a very hard. See, it can be a 360-degree feedback, like how the customers are like giving feedback on these employees. Nowadays, it's really coming actually. Like after every customer service talk, you are getting the feedback of the customer, how the employee has treated him, right, with respect or not with respect, all those things. So those should be there incorporated in the performance appraisal. Then survey tools. I told you, like the management's perception may not be reality about the ethics. So survey tools are really good to really understand what is really happening and whether that would really need a tweaking, a change to get it in compliance. So how you can really go for survey tools? One simple way is actually normally your code of ethics would be given in points, like point number one, two, three. It's a simple way to do that actually. Just reproduce. Say if there are some 40, 50 points, or like there may not be that much actually. Say 25, 30 points. You can really print it out and then ask the employees to rate from a 1 to 5. 1 means like that code of conduct point, whether that is in effect or not. What do you think? Strongly disagree, disagree, neither agree or not disagree, agree, strongly disagree, strongly agree, like that 1 to 5 rating you can give. So that will really give you an idea whether what you think as the code of conduct, the way you have defined, is it really effective or not. So survey tools is also very effective tool for monitoring, one method to monitor ethical compliance. So you should really remember two tools to really monitor, two methods, not tools, two methods for monitoring ethical compliance are human performance appraisal loop and human performance feedback loop and survey tools. Then whistleblowing framework. This is there now in US companies, at least I mean a requirement, because Sarbanes-Oxley Act mandates the US companies registered with the CC to have a whistleblowing hotline available. Like you can really make any time you come across any unethical behavior, you can or any lapse in internal control or unethical behavior, you can make a call to that, and you can handle that very anonymously. That is what is called a whistleblowing hotline. So every listed company, every company registered with the CC should have a whistleblowing hotline, and Sarbanes-Oxley Act is going in detail about how you should really establish a whistleblowing hotline. These calls should be logged perfectly, completely, and then of course when you have a hotline, 90% of the calls may be irrelevant to what you have established the hotline for. So you can mention that and then say that okay, it's about job opportunity. People are making inquiries. Like that, you can how you have disposed of those calls should be documented properly. That is the requirement of Sarbanes-Oxley Act, and that had come in 2002, and this IMA-SMA has come in 2008. So there is a paragraph talking about whistleblowing framework. That's really important. Most of these scandals have come to light through the whistleblowing framework only. So uh, a whistleblowing framework, for example, an ethics helpline is an important component in maintaining ethical organizational culture. Um, Tracking and monitoring issues raised through whistleblowing framework creates opportunities. Opportunities to enhance and improve internal controls. Management accountants needs to ensure that such processes are in place, and they operate on a fully confidential basis, and they are capable of generating statistical or event-based reporting through which insight into ethical practice can be created. When you have this kind of whistleblowing framework and people give calls to that, you will see okay how many complaints. You can see the trend whether the organization is going in a very unhealthy direction or a healthy direction, and when there is a particular issue, like you would really get to know about it. So these are the advantages of whistleblowing framework, and you need to really see that whistleblowing framework is effectively implemented in your organization. That is a responsibility a management accountant should take up within his organization. Anyway, now that is a legal requirement, at least in US, not everywhere. No, at least in US also I cannot say. In US, for companies registered with a CC is a legal requirement. Then organizations face particular challenges in applying their values and ethical standards. Um, yeah, this is the point I was talking to you like for the last few classes. Organizations face particular challenges in applying their values and ethical standards internationally, right? When you have uh, when you have multinationals, I mean, an international subsidiary, whether the parent company's thought process, whether that would be appropriate in that culture or not, all those things are a real issue. Similarly, when uh, uh, when there is a culture of immigration, like people from different background come and work, there also this kind of conflict can come. So you should, like, you cannot take anything for granted as such. So when you have a good code of ethics and when you define what is really needed, then people will be aware of the norms you are expecting them to adhere to, right? Because when people come from different cultures, the way they behave, you, like, you cannot brand them as good or bad, because that's the matter of differing norms of behavior based on the society from which they are coming from, right? From which they are coming, like, so it has nothing to do with the person being good or bad, but rather it's a matter of differing norms of behavior based on the society in which that person grew up. So, like, when they go to another country for employment, this issue can come. When they immigrate to another country, this issue can come up. And when they go to a university for studying, like from all over the place, people come. Some of the people, like when they, like, when a Thailand lady come to India for studies, she may be wearing a short trouser in a casual conversation. We might be mistaking, our students may be mistaking that for their willingness to cooperate with anything, but it is just the way they dress. So, unless you have a dress code saying that you should not be, this girl also may not be knowing what is the behavior expected of her. So it is really good to have, and it is important to have those expectations clearly defined. Otherwise, you will get into unhealthy assumptions by the other people and then get that girl also into trouble. So you should have the expectations clearly defined when you are really have the norms should be clearly defined. Otherwise, people which they have grown from, that may not be really understood in the same way as they are really having that in mind. So this issue can really come up in when there is a culture mix-up as such. Because the modern organizations, especially the multinational companies and all, is a melting pot of this kind of personal culture, right? All of these changes lead to a melting pot of personal values within societies and organizations, creating profound challenges for leaders and resulting in a new aspect of risk management for organizations. If organizations fail to make the effort to clearly define their expectations of ethical behavior and provide support and encouragement for complying with them, then the vacuum that is left will lead to unpredictable results. This is what I explained, I believe. Then the next point is really important for examination. As such, you should remember this: a comprehensive framework for a comprehensive framework of corporate ethical behavior is a prerequisite for an effective system of internal control. So, what is a prerequisite? Ethical behavior. A framework for ethical behavior is a prerequisite for a system of internal control. This is very important when you learn Sarbanes-Oxley Act and all. CEO and CFO have to give signature, put their hand on the line, meaning they have to really certify that they have implemented an internal control system and that is effective all throughout the year. All that, if they have to say, if the people are not trustworthy, how can they make that kind of assumption? Because if they collude, no internal control would work. So if CEOs and CFOs have to place their own integrity on the line by attesting to compliance, there should be a strong ethical culture within the organization. So a framework of corporate ethical behavior is a prerequisite for internal control, not the other way around. So that is very important, that a framework of corporate ethical behavior is a prerequisite for an effective system of internal control. No internal control system would work effectively unless there is a strong ethical sense among the employees. That is the point they are making. Then, this is another point. Ethical behaviors should consider the effects not only on clients, customers, and employees, but also on the nature, the society at large, everything, like see how green environment, how pollutions they are making, the waste disposal they are having. So all those things are really important as far as the sustainability of the nature society are concerned. So it is not only about customers, employees, it is about society at large. You should talk about natural environment, resource usage, implications of power outages, waste disposals, all should be addressed in an organization's code of conduct. You should give importance, and you should have an effective performance feedback uh, loop associated with that code of ethics. So this should address larger issues like environmental conservation, everything. Then only you are really having an effective code of conduct. Then they are talking about three tools that can be used to identify process controls related to ethical behavioral issues. The three tools: business BPR, TQM or QM, and continuing process improvement, continuous process improvement, continual process improvement. Like which one is right? There is so much debate. Forget about it. You can call it in any way. Continuous process improvement, that is fine, or continual process improvement, whatever you feel right. These were three buzzwords in 1980s, 1990s, like that. Like business process re-engineering, what was it actually like? You understand what is a process actually like? In a system you have inputs and outputs. The process is the uh, like process convert an input into output, right? So that's that when you really want to improve the organization, what you should understand is you should refine the process. The process will consist of activities and tasks. So you should really understand the when you want to make a change, actually like how you want to refine the inputs to outputs, how you do it, you should understand that you should re-engineer the process. Like for that there are various tools. Actually, first of all, you should understand the process, and then you should document it. There are various tools like flow charting, all those things. So a business analyst would be doing that. So these tools, like if you understand ethics, what is ethics trying to do, like from where it is today, what is the ethical culture, you are taking the organization to decide ethical culture. So there also some processes are involved. So what all tools like for charting, what all tools like you can have, you have so many tools there. Actually, what is it, are they naming anything actually? uh, what all you are using for process control, all those things in the business process re-engineering, what all you use, those tools can be implemented for your ethics management once you understand that ethics is also a process. Yes, Amit. Yes, Amit. Okay. See you then. Bye. Uh, so, uh, so ethics is also a process. So you can use the BPR tools and analytical tools you are using for BPR in the ethics refinement. Another thing, quality management, TQM, total quality management, Six Sigma, all those things are like very effective in quality management in an organization, business processes, right? But ethics is also a process where you need to have zero defects. But here, zero defects in the zero defects in the manufacturing may be zero defects from the standard, but zero defects in the ethics is actually zero deviations from the norms expected. So you can understand ethics is also product or process where you need to ensure qualities, and then the Six Sigma or the other quality management, what you are doing, right, what you are learning, can be effectively implemented for addressing the ethics issues also. That is. Then another thing is actually continuous process improvement. That is another way of thinking and then improving the processes, right? Even when you understand ethics as a process, you can use that continuous process improvement. Like continuous process improvement, if you really see these, the quality consciousness in the manufacturing sector was the one which had really helped the Japanese to recover from the issues they had faced after the Second World War, right? So it was only through quality consciousness they had come up with. So this continuous process improvement was something which the Japanese businesses had introduced, and they were calling it Kaizen, continuous, which means a continuous process improvement. Like, I think Kaizen was a sort of continuous process improvement which Toyota had implemented in their organization, right? So
I have been certified.
yeah, what did you say?
I have certified that.
Yeah, guys. So this is like one way of. So these kind of buzzwords are there. These are all having so much tools for process improvement, continuous improvement. Once you understand ethics as a process where you need continuous improvement, these tools can be effectively used in ethics management. That is what they are trying to say. Sorry. Then the last point, I think now I can breathe. I have finished that IMSMA. Now there is only one last point: corporate social responsibility and sustainability. You know something actually, corporate social responsibility. When you hear the word corporate social responsibility, first thing come to our mind is charity, right? No? Charity, like how much, what charitable contribution they are making in the society. Are they giving, distributing biryani to the poor, and then what is it actually, like constructing houses, then giving away freebies for the kids, and then what else actually, like constructing houses for the people who have lost their houses in the flood. So these are all corporate social responsibility. This kind of charity, right? So corporate social responsibility, also known as corporate responsibility, is the responsibility of a company. Is the responsibility a company takes for having an impact on its stakeholders and society. A company can take responsibility for its impact by behaving ethically, legally, and transparently. But when you hear about it, you have a feeling that corporate social responsibility is all about the charity, but it is not so. That is what we are trying to see. You have to really see that the companies are behaving like a responsible citizen, right? So that is their corporate responsibility. So you can just abbreviate corporate social responsibility as corporate responsibility. Now, uh, as the corporates are expected to discharge that responsibility, most of the countries have made it law. In India also, they need to spend this much percentage of their profit as towards this kind of activities which should benefit the society. Hmm? So it's like CSR made into a law. Just listen to me. I'm just trying to make a point here. CSR made into a law is making CSR a legal requirement. But actually speaking, it should be there uh, as the company would want to do that as such, right? So then only the company can coexist in the society, and then only the company can sustain in the long run. So sustainability focuses on long-term vitality of the business, and therefore the position the business has to take within society and its environment to continue to operate. So sustainability, say now what they are doing in this direction should be transparent, it should be published, and the companies are supposed to disclose their CSR activities. So in India, it is called CSR activity